Hello everyone, today I'm going to be talking about the Tube Quad version 1.3, and I call it version 1.3 because I've made 3 revisions to the original Tube Quad. If you haven't seen the video on the original Tube Quad, I recommend that you go watch that because in that I kind of go over the idea behind this quad and why I designed it the way I did, and that all pretty much remains the same in terms of the design philosophy and what I'm trying to achieve with this frame. Which is basically the perfect frame for what I want, which mainly is acro. So with that said, let's go ahead and look at the changes I've made and why I've made them. So all of these changes I've made have basically been to improve the structural integrity of this frame. Originally this frame was around 80 grams, which was really light, but it just wasn't strong enough for the setup I'm running on it right now, which is really heavy. So the first change I made was to thicken the arms. So originally the arms were 12 by 10, 12 millimeter outer diameter, 10 millimeter inner diameter, and now they're 12 by 8. So they are 1 millimeter thicker to an overall thickness of 2 millimeters. And I actually had to glue a smaller tube inside a larger tube because they didn't have the dimensions I wanted of 12 by 8. The next change I made was to beef up the bottom plate because I found that it would actually crack right here. In a crash, the force of the large weight of the GoPro and battery would be transferred down through the standoffs, which would give that force a kind of lever arm to then break the bottom plate right here. So now it's at 3 millimeters and I haven't had any problems with that since. And the last change I made was to mount the arms a little more traditionally. So I have 2 screws holding on each arm. Originally I only had 4 screws and those weren't really intended to take up the load of the arms. I originally intended the load of the arms to be taken up by just epoxying these arms in here, and then the arms would be 2 pieces with a lap joint, and that was supposed to take up all that force, but that didn't work out too well because the arms would break off either at this bolt here or at the lap joint because it's half thickness at the lap joint. So now with the thicker arms and the more traditionally mounted arms, it works much better, and I haven't broken any arms since. So those are the main changes to this frame. I'm only calling it version 1.3 because they're kind of just revisions to improve the durability of this frame. I think what would constitute a version 2 is a couple more changes which I think need to be made to this frame. So the first is I think the motor mounts could be improved. Now that I've fixed all the other durability issues, they're the last thing that I think could be improved. They're pretty durable. They withstand most crashes, but in really bad crashes they will break off because they're just held on with epoxy. The screws going through the arm do a lot to help the motor mount deal with all the force from an impact, but the motor mount sometimes will snap off. So if you have any ideas about how I could improve this, let me know down in the comment section below. The other change that I want to make to this frame is to increase the length of the top and bottom plates just on the front side by maybe 10 millimeters or so, just because you can see that the camera sticks out about that far, so that would help protect the camera. And in addition, I could slide the GoPro a little bit further forward. So with this wedge pushed as far forward as I can just barely get the prop nuts out of view most of the time. If you put the camera on crooked or too far back, they'll come back into view. So I think that extra 10 millimeters would do a lot for getting less of the props and motors in view and protecting the camera. So I think that would constitute a V2. So a lot of you guys in the last video said that this quad really needed a 4-in-1 ESC, and I am working on that, so just stay tuned and you will see that in the future. And I will also be making a couple changes just to accommodate the wiring for that. So make sure you guys get subscribed so you can see the changes I make to this quad when I do that. Okay, so that's it for this one. Make sure you guys like this video if you liked it. Let me know down in the comments what you think about this frame and any changes you think could be made to make it better. And get subscribed if you want to see more content like this in the future. Thanks for watching.